The Lightning dropped their first game in overtime, starting off the homestand with a 2-1 shootout loss to the Philadelphia Flyers. What do they have to do during the bye week to get things back to winning form?
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber here on Locked On Lightning, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. And it was Game Time last night at Amalie Arena. Lightning got off to a hot start on a goal of the year candidate from Nikita Kucherov. Made a nifty move to get past pretty much the entire Flyers defense. Winded around the goal, wrapped it around the net. Lightning took a 1-0 lead at the end of the first period. With about 4 minutes remaining in the third, the Flyers tied it up on a nice backhand shot in the near post top corner from Owen Tippett. An improbable goal, but it proved to be crucial as neither team scored a goal in overtime. The Flyers scored their first two in the shootout, and the Lightning were denied twice in the shootout. It's the first overtime loss of the season, and it's a pretty bad one. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You know, this is a game that the Lightning were in control of for most of the game. It was definitely a slower game. Coach Cooper talked about the team's energy, how that wasn't exactly up to par for what he had expected and what he had hoped for from the team coming off of a tough road trip. And the Lightning, I mean, anytime you lose a game that you've been leading for the majority of it, I mean, at least, you know, almost over 30 minutes of that game, the Lightning were in front. The Flyers did not lead until they scored that first shootout goal. Other than that, it was tied or the Lightning in front. And when you have a game that you're controlling, like the Lightning controlled most of that game, they really set the tempo, they set the pace, but they just didn't capitalize on some of their close shot attempts. They certainly had the better shot attempts compared to Philly. It definitely looked like the Lightning had more shots in close to the net. They had more good looks on net. And I mean, frankly, they're playing with a better goaltender as well. The Flyers goaltender Fedotov had a .957 save percentage, but on the season, it's well under 900. The Flyers outshot the Lightning. They won most of the faceoffs. They out-hit the Lightning. They blocked more shots. They took the puck away more. I mean, in a game that really seemed like it was controlled by the Lightning in the early goings, the Flyers just ended up getting better. They just kept pushing and they kept pressuring the Lightning, and ultimately the Lightning succumbed to it. I mean, I don't want to blame Andrei Vasilevsky for that because I think he had a great game. I mean, you save 30 of 31 shots in regulation and overtime. That's pretty impressive. The two shootout goals, I mean, it just wasn't his night in the shootout. 9 times out of 10, it against most goalies in the NHL, honestly, I'd pick Vasilevsky as my netminder for a shootout, but the Flyers just got the best of them, and the Lightning saw two pretty poor shot attempts in that shootout. Gage Gonzalez gave an easy pad save to Fedotov, and the second shot wasn't much better. So Lightning definitely need to improve if they get to a shootout again, but I think as a team, their morale certainly isn't broken. I label this as somewhat of a must-win game, just given the fact that it is the game against the worst team record-wise in this homestand. As I mentioned on yesterday's show, the Lightning still have a date with the Devils and the Jets, who are among the top teams in the NHL right now. So those are going to be two really tough games. And yes, that week off is certainly going to benefit the Tampa Bay Lightning, but you know, they had to do more against the Flyers, and that's just a really tough one to swallow. And you could tell after the game, the players and coaches were not happy with the way that game finished. And Brandon Hagel shared his thoughts with us at the end of the shootout.
Positive, we're in every single game. We're losing by one, we're down by one, or losing by one goal, or something like that. So we're in it, just tighten some things up, and I think we're in a good spot. I think we're not getting blown out. We're not losing games. It's maybe just us not, I don't know, necessarily executing it sometimes, and maybe it's costing us a little bit, but we're battling. I think the team in here is we're working. It's just maybe just a couple mistakes, and it just seems like it's in the back of the net, but they played well.
Brandon's got a point. I mean, you look at most of the games this season, they've all been winnable pretty much for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, even as the 7-4 loss against Winnipeg, the Lightning were in that game for a lot of it. The only game that maybe they were never really in it was the Maple Leafs game back on October 21st. But even that, they had their chances. I mean, the Lightning have certainly not played themselves out of many, if any, games this season. And, I think that's a good sign. The Lightning are definitely, they haven't dropped confidence. They haven't dropped faith in themselves. Morale hasn't changed. I mean, this is just a team that expects to play better than they did on Thursday night. And, there certainly were some nice moments. I really liked what I saw during regulation from Gage Gonzalez. I think he showed a lot of his versatility and athleticism, and Connor Geekie played a nice physical game as well. Vasilevsky, really, other than the shootout, was lights out. That Tippett goal was an aberration. It's a backhand shot near post, just kind of caught Vazzy off guard, and really the whole stadium. I mean, you could just tell after Tippett put that goal in that it was just like the air was sucked out of Amalie Arena. It was just such an unexpected goal. And, there are some Flyers fans, so they were a bit loud, but the air was just sucked out of Amalie Arena after Tippett scored. And it kind of showed. The Lightning played flat in overtime, and in the shootout, they didn't really get creative and couldn't put the puck past Fedotov. And they kind of gave Philadelphia that victory. They snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory there, did the Lightning on Thursday. I mean, the defense looked good. The penalty kills were spectacular. That was probably the silver lining in what was all in all, a disappointing game for Tampa Bay. But the penalty kills were spectacular. Again, it was the Lightning setting the tone, controlling the pace of play and doing things how they wanted to be done on the penalty kills as well. I mean, they had a shorthanded chance on that first penalty kill as well. And just the Flyers did not get good power play looks. So the penalty kill was great. The power play, I mean, for the Lightning in general, I think part of that might come down to the energy. Just for the most part, the team just kind of came out flat, and you just didn't see, it just looked like a different team. Like they were just kind of dragging their feet and going through the motions a little bit. And that's just not what we've come to expect from the Lightning over the course of this season. I think they definitely need to improve their physicality. They've been out hit in all but, I think, 2 or 3 games this season. And that, I think, showed in the defense. But, this was, it's not a very physical Flyers team. And it was just good enough, the lack of physicality, that it was able to help the Lightning keep Philly in check for most all of the game. Philly outshot the Lightning by 8. And, that one Tippett goal in regulation was really it. This could have very easily been a 1-0 game, or, there were a couple more chances that both teams had. You saw a couple shots rattle around the inside of the posts. But, this was definitely a game that was stronger defensively. And for the first time this season, the Lightning's offense just didn't show up how you would expect an elite offense in the NHL to show up. So they've got a week off to kind of reset, take care of things. It's something John Cooper will talk about in the next segment. We got some post-game sound from him, but the Tampa Bay Lightning have a week off before they have a second date in this regular season with the best team in hockey to this point. The Winnipeg Jets face the Lightning a week from yesterday. So 6 days off for Tampa. What's the best way for the Lightning to come out of that week off? Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through HIMS, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. HIMS provides an access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra and Cialis, as well as their generics, for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for those uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a set of questions on the HIMS website, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/LOCKEDON for your personalized ED treatment options. HIMS.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compound products, which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescription require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and import safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. The number one sports book in America is FanDuel. And you can tackle NHL action with America's number one sports book this season, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NHL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NHL. Back for the second segment of tonight's show. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have a week off, the longest period off that they've had at this point in the season. And honestly, it comes at a much needed time. Tampa was on the brink of heading in to that week off with a victory on a happy note, but it ended up a shootout loss. First overtime loss of the season. The Lightning are now 1-1 in games that have gone past regulation. They're 0-1 on shootouts and even in overtime contests. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, you know, they need to regroup. They need to reset in the week off. That's something that all the players and Coach John Cooper talked about after Thursday's shootout loss to the Philadelphia Flyers.
We got to get healthy. And, you know, there's guys in our lineup that are playing that are fighting through stuff just to play. So that'll be a big part of us. But it's, probably a little bit of a reset here for us. You know, it's always tough to you off those long road trips. You were frustrated on the road. We left some points on the board. And the first game back is always a tough one. And but you know, it's less than 5 minutes left in the game. We got the lead, and we only come out with 1 point. It's a little frustrating.
So John Cooper is clearly frustrated by the last couple of Lightning games, and the first and foremost the first point that he made is certainly the most important one. Talking about the Lightning just getting a little healthy. Erik Cernak played just 9 minutes in the game, missed most of the second and third period. Didn't play after the second period, actually, did Erik Cernak. So that is someone that the Lightning could certainly get back. Braden Point missed his second consecutive game. I saw that part of the reason that he missed that game, last night's game, was because the Lightning had a week off after. Didn't want to just rush him back. Now, you give him an extra day, then he takes the entire week, and he likely will be ready for the Lightning's next game a week from yesterday against the Winnipeg Jets. So that is certainly going to be a big piece to get back for the Tampa Bay Lightning, because Point might have turned the tide in this game. I mean, they could have used him on the power play. The Lightning didn't get too many power play chances, and Point has more power play goals than the rest of the team. Could have helped with some face-offs. Something that Ryan McDonough specifically was talking about after the game was the Lightning's just lack of shots. They've gotten outshot in the last couple of games, and they threw 8 fewer shots towards the net than the Philadelphia Flyers last night. And, obviously if Braden Point's in the net, he's going to be he's going to be firing pucks at the net. So I think getting him back, getting Cernak back, hopefully after this week off, and a couple of other guys who are playing injured that obviously John Cooper declined to name, but the Lightning are banged up right now. That's something that Brandon Hagel talked about, McDonough talked about, Cooper talked about after the game. It's a part of the season, and it has gotten to Tampa in the past couple of games, and it's been a part of this 4-game skid, and that is something that can hopefully be fixed on the bye week, and that is priority number one for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've got practices this weekend. I'm sure they'll have some more next week before the Thursday game. But getting healthy is obviously the number one priority. And something else the Lightning need to do is honestly just put the last 4 games behind them. I think every coach I've ever had in any sport has told me to have a short memory. You don't want to dwell on a rough play, a rough period, a rough game, whatever. The past is the past. Yes, the Lightning lost their last 4 games. Yes, they were in all of those games. They had leads in all those games and, had a chance to come away with a victory. And in some cases, they came away with a point, like last night. In 3 other cases, they did not. And it's tough. It's fixed in the Lightning's record. It's dropped them back to 500 almost. And that is just something the Lightning need to put out of their mind. It doesn't matter that they're playing Winnipeg again. So not only do they have the chance to upset the best team in the league right now by record, but that would also give them redemption for the loss on Sunday that the Lightning suffered at the hands of Winnipeg. It was 4-4 in the third period. The Jets scored the final 3 goals and took the victory away from the Tampa Bay Lightning. So they've got a chance for redemption, but I don't think that, thinking about the game like that, putting it in that context is going to help the Lightning all that much. I think that they just need to use this bye week as a reset, like Coach Cooper said, and just, I don't want to say start over, but, just kind of change things up. Just, bond as a team, get back to normal and get back to the winning ways. In terms of straight wins and losses, the Lightning are even at 7-7, but they've got 15 points. They're 7-6-1 after the overtime loss. And I think they need to use this week off as a time to just recharge, regroup, forget about this 4-game losing streak, and then come back on Thursday and get a win. They're off at home, and their next 2 games are at home. So I think that's a benefit for Tampa to be able to have a full week, longer than a full week, a week and a half really at home. Their next road game is on Tuesday, the 19th of November in Pittsburgh. So Lightning players have almost 2 weeks of time at home. And especially after what's been a crazy start to the season with the Hurricanes, back and forth in terms of streaks. They've had a 3-game winning streak here, 3-game losing streak there, and are now in the midst of a 4-game losing streak that they hope to snap on Thursday. But, that these off weeks are times that need to be cherished, especially in a physical game that just takes a toll on your body like hockey does. So I think the Lightning need to just forget about the losing streak, forget about this last game, relax in this week off, get some good practice in, and, get back to the winning Tampa Bay Lightning that we all know and love. And a lot of our favorite Tampa Bay Lightning players are up for the 3rd Hall of Fame class for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Voting starts today and ends on November 16th. Of the group that is up for the Hall of Fame in Tampa Bay, who will get in this time? A couple weeks ago, I went to the Joint Chiropractic in Clearwater, one of the 23 Tampa Bay area locations of the Joint. I've had back pain for a long time, and I just decided that it was finally time to do something about it. And the Joint Chiropractic was just spectacular. They have a knowledgeable, friendly, and helpful staff that easily diagnoses your problem areas and tells you how to fix them. I still have a stretching program that I'm swearing by, given to me by the fine people at the Joint, that is helping me, keep my back in tip-top shape. And it's definitely a place that I would recommend if you have any pain that is difficult for you to manage. And as I said, there are 23 Tampa Bay area locations for the Joint Chiropractic. And if you go to Buccaneers.com, fans, contests, and promotions, you can get your first visit for just $19. So visit one of the Joint's 23 Tampa Bay area locations today to get your pain fixed. Last couple of seasons, the Tampa Bay Lightning have inducted 5 players and Lightning executives into the Lightning Hall of Fame. Martin St. Louis, Vincent Lecavalier, and Phil Esposito, the inaugural Lightning Hall of Fame class in 2023. Last year, Brad Richards and Dave Andreychuk were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now, the 3rd Lightning class, the class of 2025, includes 8 former Lightning players, executives, and 1 broadcaster, Rick Peckham. The Lightning have chose 2 or 3 players in the past 2 seasons. Fans can vote on the Tampa Bay Lightning app, so down that on the Apple and Google store to get that done. And here are the 9 to 10 players and executives for the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're going to break these guys down. I'm going to start with Rick Peckham because that's kind of the hardest to really go into a lot of detail about, considering that Rick Peckham was a broadcaster and I believe the longest tenured voice of the Tampa Bay Lightning in their history. 24 years Peckham was the Lightning's play-by-play announcer, and I pass the Rick Peckham broadcast booths every day. I go in every home game I go to at Amalie Arena. So I think as a broadcaster myself, I'm going to vote for him. He is definitely a guy that I think should be in the Hall of Fame. Henry Paul, first vice president and secretary for Tampa Bay, definitely played a big part in getting this Lightning team off of the ground. I don't know if he's going to get in. I think he certainly has the pedigree. I mean, really, all these guys are just beloved figures in Lightning history. It's going to be hard to say no to most of these guys. Did a lot of work with Phil Esposito, who is in the Hall of Fame. Maybe he can be the Scottie Pippen to Esposito's Michael Jordan, as it were. But Henry Paul, another guy who I think could be in there. It depends on how many inductees will get in. Paul is kind of on the fringe for me. Brian Bradley is a really interesting one. His career might not be eye-popping with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's not some huge name, some legendary figure, but for the Lightning, as he was one of the key offensive players in the Lightning's early years, he scored the first goal at the Lightning's home stadium, was the first Lightning All-Star, and, he was part of the first Lightning playoff teams. And, he did solid for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Didn't score more than 40 goals, didn't pass out more than 56 assists. His numbers don't jump off the page, and if we're going purely on numbers, I don't think he gets it. He did play a lot of his best seasons with the Tampa Bay Lightning in his long NHL career, 13 NHL seasons, and that is not something to be looked down upon. But, his career, he finished with a -66 and 182 goals and 321 assists and 650 games played. A little less than half of that were played with the Lightning, as he also began his career with the Flames, then played for the Canucks and Maple Leafs before joining the Lightning and playing in Tampa from 1992 to 1998. Now, his NHL career stats might not jump off the page, but I think he's going to get my vote simply because of just the first that he had. And I think that I don't know if he's going to get in, but just because of the first, I think he at least deserves a shot. The first All-Star, the first goal at the Ice Palace that's now Amalie Arena. I think Brian Bradley certainly deserves a fair shot. Jay Feaster, I feel like that's a shoo-in. He was the architect of that 2004 championship team, general manager for 6-7 years, which is not something to look down upon. That is not easy in any sport. I think he'll be in there. Pavel Kubina is certainly an option, a 7th-round pick in 1996, played 10 seasons, won a Stanley Cup with the Lightning in 2004, played the second most games by a defenseman behind Victor Hedman in Lightning history. He's definitely a possibility. I think he'll get my vote as well. He's I think one of the most, outside of, the big stars like your Steven Stamkoses, Martin St. Louis, Vincent Lecavalier, he might be one of the biggest names that is not, a hockey Hall of Famer, as well as I think the other three probably should be. So Pavel Kubina probably is going to get my vote, but I'm probably going to pick more guys for this Hall of Fame class than will actually get in. Ryan Callahan, I think, is going to be a no. His big distinction with the Lightning was that he was an alternate captain, helped them. He was the alternate captain in the 2015 Stanley Cup final loss and the devastating first-round playoff exit after the President's Trophy and what ended up being Cal's final season in the NHL. But I just don't think he's done enough to earn his spot on the Lightning Hall of Fame. And the last two were goalkeepers, numbers 2 and 3 in Lightning history in wins, Ben Bishop and Nikolai Khabibulin. And this is where I'm going to go a little bit off the reservation because Ben Bishop has more wins than Nikolai Khabibulin. Khabibulin has more All-Stars, and he has a Stanley Cup championship. So if I'm picking between the two goalies, Khabibulin is someone who I always identify with the Lightning. Personally, I'm biased towards goaltenders, but, you're the first Stanley Cup goaltender on the Lightning team, I feel like has to get in there. But, with Bishop having more wins, there definitely is going to be some that say if Khabibulin is in, then Bishop has to be in too. And Bishop, they both played for 5 NHL teams, but I think just because Khabibulin got that Stanley Cup championship, he's going to get my vote. Ben Bishop probably won't. I could see him getting in though, but again, I don't see it. So I'm going to go with Jay Feaster, Pavel Kubina, Nikolai Khabibulin, and Rick Peckham as my votes for the Lightning Hall of Fame fan vote. Feel free to share yours in the comments, or you can DM us on Twitter, post on Twitter, tagging Locked On Lightning at LO_Lightning with your 2025 Bolts Hall of Fame nominees, or the guys that you vote for. That is going to do it for tonight's show. This is going to send you off to the weekend. So thank all of you for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Lightning and making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steele and Flint. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure to give us a like, a follow, subscribe. Feel free to interact with us as well. We do this show for you guys, so we want to make this as fun for all of you as it possibly can be. We appreciate your support. Definitely would appreciate a subscription on YouTube, a follow on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of that. So we appreciate you guys tuning into the podcast and thank all of you for listening. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Make sure to start your voting on the Lightning's Hall of Fame class and the Lightning app as well. And we'll have an interesting week as Lightning play 2 games this coming week, but have 4 days off as well. Thank you all for tuning in once again. I'm Josh Sperber, signing off here on Locked On Lightning. Enjoy your weekend.